For joining us here again tonight. Thank you to our online audience for joining this live or watching the recording. We really appreciate your interest in this conversation. Just for those who haven't heard this spiel already, and those in the room can tune me out for the next few minutes, but the World Affairs Council of New Hampshire is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization based in Manchester, New Hampshire, but with a global reach. We are here to provide the platform for conversations on critical global issues, and we hope and encourage everyone who participates in our programming to take the information that you learn from these programs and do with it what you will. We are not here to tell you what to think, how to think, or what to do about it, but we want you to come away with key insights from expert speakers such as Florence, who will be joining us in a moment to add to this wonderful documentary that we've just seen. But we are here to help people better understand the world. We do that through speakers programs, podcasts, international visitor exchanges, and high school diplomacy simulations. Since I've already gone over this with you in the room, I'll leave it there, and I'll invite Florence Flo to come on up and give her speech before we move into a moderated Q&A. Florence Reed is the founder of Sustainable Harvest International and its Chief Growth Officer now. She founded this organization based in the Boston area in 1997. They are, as you saw in the film, doing work in Central America, working to help smallholder farms to improve their practices, improve the environment, improve their community, improve the climate, and a lot of room to grow, I think, as they continue to do this great work. You can read more about their organization on sustainableharvestinternational.org. Check it out for sure. And Flo, I'll turn it over to you for some remarks, and then you can join me here for some question and answer.
Thanks, everyone. I don't have a lot to add. I do want to say thank you so much to World Affairs Council, League of Conservation Voters, and the library for hosting the event, and everybody here, many of whom I know and some I don't know, for coming out to share this evening with us. Especially pleased to have one current board member and two emeritus board members here. So afterwards, I hope people will stay, have some refreshments, and talk with all of us. And I know there's other people here who have seen the work down in Central America. And so I'd just like to say that anybody who hasn't been down and visited the farms in Central America, I hope you'll think about coming and taking a trip with us someday and see these farms and meet these amazing farmers who are transforming our world. I hope that you're all as amazed and impressed with them as I am. And we'll continue thinking about the fact that there are 500 million farmers like those you saw in the film around the world, and they're ready to jump in and make this world better for all of us. So at Sustainable Harvest, we're doing everything we can to further that. We have a big, audacious goal to help 1 million farms to make this transition to agroecology, to make a healthier planet for everybody, and to make a sustainable food system, particularly for the communities where the farmers are living. I'm told that we are not supposed to fundraise at the library, so I will not ask any of you to make a donation, but I will tell you that the one thing holding us back from reaching more of the farmers waiting to join the program is a lack of financial resources. So if anybody would like to learn more about the work, we have a sign-up sheet over on the table. We have a little flyer that you can take away. And this is really our first public screening like this of Roots of Renewal. So thank you. And we're hoping to roll it out and show it many more places. We're hoping that it's going to help bring more support for the farmers. And so as part of that, we are going to be, over the coming year, accepting donations. People are going to be able to put leaves on our banner there. So I've done the first one in memory of Jeff Clark and Samuel Kamen and David Borden and Jerry Kelly. As Tim mentioned, SHI has its roots here in Portsmouth. The first office was the spare bedroom at my parents' house in Newington. The next office, the first real office, was a room in the Kearsarge building just down from Market Square. And many people here volunteered in getting SHI started in those early days. So it's wonderful to be back here, wonderful to be having our first public screening of Roots of Renewal. And yeah, and I look forward to hearing people's thoughts and answering questions and staying to chat with some refreshments afterwards. So thank you again. Oh, and if you'd like to just get any little idea of what we're going to be doing, these are the little leaves that we're going to be doing for our campaign tied to the thing. So again, not fundraising, just letting you know. Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to mute this mic over here. Got to get the branding, right? Okay, so we will get to audience questions, and for anyone who's watching live online, we'd love to take your questions. Either send us an email at council@wacnh.org or put your question into the YouTube chat. I have my little tablet here, so I'm not checking the Red Sox score or anything like that. But we are happy to take questions. I have a few questions to get us started. Turn it over to the audience. Again, please do wait for the microphone so that the online audience can hear the question and we don't have to repeat it for everyone to hear. So one of the things that for me comes out of this is why Central America? Why did you start there? Obviously, you showed several farms here in the region that you could have started with, despite our rocky soil. We hear that you can grow stuff anywhere with enough work, despite my backyard doing its best to prevent that from happening. So why Central America? Was it a connection? Was it a passion?
Sure. Well, to be honest, it was somewhat happenstance. I started my career as a Peace Corps volunteer in Panama, and so I developed roots there. And then working for other nonprofit organizations, I worked in Honduras, Nicaragua, Belize. But I also really saw during that time that the farmers in Central America were ready and willing and actually anxious and begging for the opportunity to jump in and to do this hard work, and that there were hundreds of thousands of them ready to do that. So it seemed like the low-hanging fruit to make this work happen as quickly as possible. And also, to be honest, it's less expensive to operate in Central America. So even paying decent wages to our local employees, it costs us a lot less to run a program there than in many other places. And so we get more bang for our buck and more acres transformed and more families fed. So that's why we're there.
Yeah, wonderful. And can you tell us a little bit about what your near-term plans are? Are you looking to move this into any particular country next? Obviously, with the caveats of finding that funding that those nonprofits are always asking for.
Right. That is the tricky part, but we do, as was mentioned in the film, we do have a scaling plan to take us towards this big audacious goal of 1 million farms. And it's based on 3 pillars. One, expanding our direct work with farmers as a foundation to build from, And then next, trying innovations on our methodology, on our program to deliver the technical assistance to get the results more efficiently. And we've made a number of steps in that regard. Our new version of our program is called the TREE program. It stands for Training to Expand Eco-Agriculture. And it's delivering the technical assistance and getting the results for half the cost of what we used to spend to get those results. So we've been making progress there. And then the primary piece of our scaling plan is to find partnerships, partner with other organizations, larger organizations that can help us reach many more farmers. And we're starting to take some small steps in that regard as well. The TREE program in Honduras is being done in partnership with a Honduran government institution called the Institute for Professional Development. They work with tens of thousands of people all over the country, and they're bringing some of their resources to bear. And as we continue to move forward and partner with other organizations, then we expect to hold that up, take that to other countries as well, and ask them to partner with us to reach many more farmers. But we're still in the fairly early stages, and it's been a challenge lately, as I've said, to find the resources to move as quickly as we would like.
And can you talk a little bit about what that training program actually looks like? How do you deliver this service? What are some of the key top-line things that you're teaching and training on? I know you kind of get that through the story of the film, but on the more granular level, what does that look like?
Well, the key piece is that we hire local trainers in the countries, local people who grew up in communities in similar circumstances to the farmers in the program. Each one of those trainers works with a group, well, used to work with a group of about 35 farmers. Now with the new TREE program, they work with 100 farmers because they're working in partnership with farmer mentors who get more intensive training early on and then help the professional trainers to reach larger numbers of farmers. And then the farmers go through the program over the course of several years. First, they plan out what they want to accomplish in the program with guidance from our trainers. And at the end of that, they draw a picture of what their land looks like and what they want it to look like. And then that's our guide working together for the next several years. And over those years, the farmers learn how to build healthy soil with things like compost and cover crops, erosion control. They learn how to diversify their farms, including with trees. As they go further into the program, we talk more about how to increase income from their farms, and that's an area that we're looking to strengthen, particularly now with the new TREE program. And then at the end, they just get some training in how to share what they've learned with others, how to be leaders in their community if they want to do that. And then there's a graduation, and I know our board members here have been to those graduations, which is just a blast. People come from all over. Family members come to see their family members graduate. The farmers get a diploma, and then afterwards there's usually music, there's dancing, there's food. It's a big deal. And then those farmers are able to continue on, share what they've learned with others. And we've gone back, we've done a survey, we went back 5-10 years after the farmers graduated from the program and found that 91% of them were still using these practices that they had learned with the SHI program. And anecdotally, we learned that their children are picking up these techniques as well. So we're now seeing a multi-generational effect from those few years of intensive technical assistance that we put in.
And that's wonderful. That was something I was going to ask about is long-term impact. So great to hear that. But zooming out to more of the food system-wide conversation, one of the things that I noticed was Elliott is part of Real Organics, and one of the things that the World Affairs Council does is bring international visitors. Over the years, we've brought farmers from around the world to talk about farming here in the States, and one of the things that I was interested to learn about was the almost fallacy of the organic farming movement and some of the things that you wouldn't think could qualify for that seal of approval do qualify for the seal of approval. Can you talk a little bit about organic farming, what it might really look like versus what it kind of is stamped onto many products here in the United States.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about
Yeah.
that. That's not my
Sure.
strongest area of expertise, but I do know that with organic farming, that the USDA now controls the organic label, at least here in the U.S., and it allows a lot of things that farmers like Elliot Coleman don't think should be considered organic. Like it doesn't have to be grown in soil, for one thing. And organic can be a huge monoculture grown with huge machines and basically replacing the chemical inputs with organic inputs that aren't that much better. That's by comparison to what Elliot calls real organic. Yeah, I think of it as agroecology, all the different terms you'll hear people argue, both sides of any term, regenerative agriculture, any of it. But what Sustainable Harvest promotes and what I believe our farming should all look like is healthy soils with a healthy ecosystem and doing whatever you need to do to make that happen, which means not putting chemical fertilizers into the soil. It means building up the organic material in the soil and then creating a healthy ecosystem above ground as well, which to a great extent, to my mind, is about biodiversity. So natural biodiversity, but also diversity of crops.
And then you are working specifically with small farmers. Can these practices be implemented on large farms? We see a lot of hunger around the world. There are some various reasons behind that don't necessarily have to do with the amount of food available, but can we feed the world by using these sustainable practices that you're promoting?
Well, I agree with Vandana Shiva that it's the only way that we can feed the world, that the huge mechanized, chemical-laden monoculture production is not going to feed the world. It's going to crash, and it's going to lead to further hunger. And we're already seeing it, where farmers have been using these techniques, and it's destroyed their land. And in some places, they're committing suicide because they can't grow their crops that way anymore. Whereas with the techniques that the farmers in the film are using, it's improving year after year after year. It's not degrading, it's improving. And Vandana Shiva's organization, Navdanya, they did a study where they studied the nutrients produced on farms like these versus the nutrients produced on conventional farms. And on the farms like the ones in the film, it was 300% more of this nutrient, 600% more of that nutrient. It was just infinitely more nutritious food being produced, as opposed to, say 1,000 acres of corn, which, good tortilla, that's a good thing. But, all of the stuff that's made out of corn, all the fake food that is in the supermarkets, that's not what's going to feed the world and keep people healthy.
Well, I recently learned about the difference between wild corn and commercially grown corn. If you haven't seen a comparison side by side, look it up online. It's pretty fascinating. Okay, I want to turn it over to the audience now. We do have a number of questions coming in from online, but I like to thank our audiences for coming in person by turning it to them first. So, any questions? Yeah, we'll go with you, Rob, as our partner at the League of Conservation Voters.
Thanks, Tim, and thank you for being here. So it's fascinating what's happening in other parts of the world. How is that applied here in the United States, particularly now with the Farm Bill, for example, which could be, if it was arranged properly, voted properly, could be a vehicle for this kind of transition. I'm very skeptical about that at the moment, but and the Farm Bill is quite overdue in terms of its reauthorization. But how do you see this impacting, or this transition being implemented here on a scale?
Sure. Thanks. And shout out to LCV, one of my first jobs during college and after college. And again, it's not really my area of expertise. My focus is very much in Central America, but I will say that I see the farmers in New Hampshire and the farmers in Maine who are growing not exactly the way we saw in the film, but very similar with the same principles, the same values. And they're not getting the support that they need either, and they're competing against the subsidies that are going to the destructive farms. And so I think that there is tremendous potential if the shift was made to support those local farmers that are using good practices. I think I'm lucky where I live in Maine on the Blue Hill Peninsula. I am able to shop at Farm Drop, where once a week I can order from local farms and pick up food. And so between that and my garden, probably 75% at least of what I'm eating is grown within 50 miles and grown the right way. And I think if there was more support for farmers who wanted to be doing that, help for young farmers getting the land, help for technical assistance, help for connecting with consumers and helping consumers be able to buy those foods, that we have tremendous potential in this country. And certainly in big farms, I wouldn't say that there's no room for the larger farms, that they can certainly be making very positive changes as well, with pastured meats and with cover crops, and there's so many improvements we could be making, and we're just not. Our government so far has not been supporting those, unfortunately.
Sure.
This is about Haiti, but it may have resonance. I saw something on the PBS NewsHour about how the small-scale farmers in Haiti were actually wiped out pretty much by the foreign aid that we supply in the form of subsidized crops. And it seems to me that that's being replicated around the world, and that ties into farm policy, it ties into foreign policy. Maybe the World Affairs Council has an answer to that, but it's the whole idea, if you teach a man to fish, he fishes for a lifetime and so forth. But we've built a system where we basically subsidize our farmers to overproduce things that nobody needs to eat, and then dump it on poor countries in the form of foreign aid, and that undermines their own food production systems. And so the small-scale farmers in Haiti in this PBS news clip were actually growing their own rice, I think it was, and then selling it at a premium, but only for holidays. And they themselves were buying the rice that was being exported by us because it was so much cheaper, even though they knew it wasn't any good. But that was what they could afford to eat. So you have a system here that it's foreign policy, it's agricultural policy that all ties into not what necessarily the farmers want to do, but what they're being forced to do by the system that exists. And so I hope you can solve that. All right?
Well, I don't know about solve it, but I'll take a crack at it after Flo has her answer.
I was just going to leave it to you to solve it.
Sure,
but
yeah.
I'll just agree that that's a very good point, and I think certainly there are times when food aid is needed, however you can get it when people are starving. But as a long-term policy to send cheap, bad food to people instead of helping them to grow good, nutritious food to feed themselves is not the way to go, and would love to see that change.
And I am no expert in this, but from the conversations we've had with different speakers, check out our March, I believe it was, podcast, Global in the Granite State, on demystifying USAID. We talk about this, and one of the things that USAID does, or did, was to work with U.S. farmers to produce food that then in emergencies was sent to places where there is a need. So whether it's a natural disaster, a drought, war, whatever the case may be. One of the reasons that is done is to build support in the United States to fund this stuff. So as part of USAID's mission and requirements, whenever they could, they had to use U.S. farmers. They had to use U.S. transportation companies. You had to use U.S. ports. And the reason for that is it builds support in the United States to pay for this. So we are spending money here in the United States to then go help people abroad. Whether or not that is the most efficient way to do that, and whether or not it is the best for the people who are receiving that aid, it depends a little bit on the situation. So long term, if you are responding to a natural disaster where there was a massive flood that destroyed crops, maybe it is best to bring in food from an outside source. Maybe you could source it from somewhere closer. That's certainly a question to look at each and every time. But if you are replacing long-term food systems, then yes, that does become a problem, and it is something that the foreign policy world is discussing. Development aid, development resources. So it is something that is definitely acknowledged as a potential issue. There are reasons for why it happens the way it happens. Not saying that that is good, bad, or indifferent, but just trying to provide a little insight there. So I do want to bring in a question from online. Frank from Washington, D.C. is asking, we've seen grocery prices increase a lot in the past several years. Inflation is something that people are very concerned about. Does this type of farming increase cost to consumers, or is it something that can help reduce costs?
Well, again, my experience is mostly in Central America, and so there it brings down the costs for the farmers to produce the food, and so by extension, I think it certainly could bring down the cost of the food. I think this is partly because of the fact that labor costs are less there, and generally this type of farming spends much less on inputs, on external inputs. Like Elliot Coleman said, everything is grown right there on the farm, everything that they need. They don't need to buy anything and bring it in to grow their crops. But Elliot is also probably using more labor to farm the way he's farming than maybe somebody who's using more external input. So it might be a little bit different in this country than in Central America, where the costs are lower. But either way, I think the costs are also a lot lower if people are eating more whole foods instead of processed foods. And one of the other things I've heard Elliot say that I agree with 100% is that most people will spend more money to get a better pair of shoes, a better car, a better television, better this, better that. But when it comes to food, a lot of people, they just want the cheapest. And they don't want to think about spending more for better food. And in my mind, that's the complete opposite. I'd rather spend less on everything else in order to spend more on good food that supports my health and supports the health of the planet.
Well, and hopefully long term, as you just said, helping the planet, it reduces costs in terms of climate disaster mitigation and recovery and all of those things. Yeah.
Thank you. I have three relatively small factual questions. The first question is, could you reiterate the countries that that Sustainable Harvest International is currently serving?
Currently, Honduras, Panama, and Belize, and for a while we were also in Nicaragua.
Okay, thank you. And my second question is, can you tell us, they were using some plants to make essentially pesticides. Can you tell us what a couple of those plants are?
Yeah, there's a number of plants that can be used to make pesticides: hot peppers, tobacco, garlic. There's a a tree in Central America called balo in Panama, madreado in Honduras, madre de cacao in Belize. And those leaves can be used both for fertilizer and for pesticides. There's a bunch of others that I'm blanking on at the moment, but there's a few.
And so Sustainable Harvest helped to teach people how to make these?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. And then my last question is, I know that there is increased biodiversity as a result of the families changing the way that they farm. Are there methods by which you're able to track the extent of the biodiversity and to communicate that out?
Tracking the natural biodiversity is something that we have as a goal going forward. It's a little bit tricky. There's a number of ways to do it, but all of them take a fair amount of effort and technology, which has been just beyond our capacity up to this point. But it is one of our goals going forward, so that we can have more than anecdotal evidence about the natural biodiversity improvements on the farms. As far as the diversity of the crops, that we do document, where we do a baseline survey with the farmers who are usually growing 3, 4, maybe 5 crops when they start with the program, and by the time they graduate, they're usually growing 20, 30, or 40 different crops. And so that is something that's easier for us to track.
Barbara. Thanks, Flo. This is great program. Really appreciate learning more about
Thanks, Barbara.
sustainable harvest and the work. One question though, the work is, at least as I understand it, are pretty much small farms and community-based, which I think is wonderful. But I think that everybody would like to eat this way. And how do we feed New York City? Do you have any idea if someone is setting up a large-scale operation that might feed a lot of people? Because that, I mean, it's hard to preach to people about how great this is if they can't eat it themselves.
Yeah, well, this might be a case of where, I think was it Tony Barrington who always used to say, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And so I think there's a lot of good that can be done with the farms that are currently feeding, say, New York City. They can make changes relatively easily to move in the right direction, although not where I would like to see it perfectly. But then eventually I think we can have enough of these small farms and can create the ecosystem for them to operate where they could be the ones that are feeding New York City. You can have a 1-acre farm that is producing 20,000 pounds of food a year, and you multiply that by however many farms, and here the small farms are more than 1 acre. And I think we can get there, but I think it's going to take time. So I think we encourage people to do better where they can, if they can't do it perfectly, and then also keep encouraging people to move more towards that more perfect way of production.
And a good follow-on to that comes from Clifford, wondering about how do we, what steps can we take individually to improve our own systems, our own, backyard farms?
So individuals can try to find the local farms and the ones that are using good techniques, ask about the practices that the farmers are using, find the farmers markets, find the CSAs, find the local produce section in the supermarkets.
More about what can people do in their own backyard.
In their own backyard.
Any tips for the
sure.
local farmer who wants to do it themselves?
Oh, yeah, people, and certainly everybody growing as much of their own food as they can is a great goal. And all the basic concepts that the farmers are using in the film can be used by anybody growing a garden or a farm here. The concept of soil health, different types of compost, cover crops, all of that can be done by anybody. I do it with my little garden, and intercropping, planting a diversity of crops is something that people can do. There's more happening with agroforestry now in this country as well as in the tropics. There's still more of it in the tropics, but certainly there are a lot of trees that can be mixed in. Pretty much any of the practices that are being used by our program and that are being shown in the film can be done here. And maybe a few of the details might change. You might not have a moderated cacao tree here, but you have another one that's going to provide a similar role. And so absolutely, we can all be doing this in our backyards.
And any first steps you would recommend for the aspiring agro farmer?
Building up the soil health, however you want to do that, whether it's with compost or with cover crops.
Hi, it's not really a question. I just want to say something that I think what your film does, and the biggest thing that your organization has going for it is hope for those of us who feel like every tree that gets cut down is being replaced with a dry landscape behind it. And the notion that topsoil can be recreated and the notion that we can rejuvenate is so powerful. And I think that for what it's worth, we all are talking about money, but hope is what you have in the biggest way here. And I think that that is huge.
Thank you.
I recently listened to a interview with Melinda Gates, and they asked her a question about what she had learned and what maybe she would do differently to affect more change, despite her billions of giving away billions of dollars. And she said that what she would possibly do differently or had learned was that that she felt that it's necessary to work with governments in order to truly affect change on a large scale. And it sounds like you are with Honduras. It sounds like you're partnering with the Honduran government. But I'm wondering, for SHI to really scale up, do you agree? Do you feel like we'll need to really work with governments, or can we sort of do it on our own?
I think we're going to need to kind of feel our way on this, as SHI always has over the years, but it does seem to me that some of the greatest potential could be with working with governments, and of course it comes with a lot of difficulties as well, and I think we're all aware of that. But right now, if governments are spending a lot of money to give out chemicals to farmers that's going to kill their soil and contaminate their water and possibly harm their children and their own health, and if they could instead be using that for programs such as Sustainable Harvests program, then I'd be happy to see Sustainable Harvest put out of business, because the governments all now have agroecology extension programs, and governments now spend $60 billion a year subsidizing really harmful farming practices. And if they took 5% of that and invested it in programs like this one in their countries, that would get all 500 million smallholder farmers the technical assistance they need to transform our world food system. So I do think we need, I don't know if it's possible, but I do think we need to try our best to help governments to make that transition, and businesses as well. There's huge food businesses that have networks of thousands or tens of thousands of farms, and a lot of them are actually trying to make this shift. I was at a conference not too long ago, and the sustainability vice president for, is it Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola, one of them, said they really want to help their farmers shift to regenerative practices, which again, I'm not sure how he defined that, but it did sound like they're trying to move in the right direction, which is good. And he said that what was holding them back was a lack of technical assistance to help the farmers to make that transition. So if we could work with some of these big companies that you know, again, I know that there's a lot of issues on both sides there as well, but there does seem to be potential to get traction with much larger numbers of farmers if we can work with entities like governments, like big businesses that can reach much larger numbers of farmers. So I think we need to make our very best effort to try to do that.
And here's an interesting question from John in Plymouth. Elon Musk offered the United Nations $6 billion if they could come up with a plan to end world hunger. What could Sustainable Harvest International do with that money to improve our agricultural systems?
Well, coincidentally, I think that is the amount needed to reach those 500 million
Perfect. How about
smallholder
that?
farmers around the world. So I'll write that up and send it off to them.
All right, good. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, Vor.
Flo, thanks for your presentation.
Thanks, Ivor.
I think that one of the limitations is the number of trainers that you can find to expand your organization. But I believe that the trainers that you do pick up have some agricultural training. So it seems to me that you need to be training the trainers so that you have more educated people available to do your work.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it boils down to having the trainers to provide the technical assistance to the farmers. And there are good schools in all the countries where we work that are training agronomists. Sometimes training them in agroecology practices, sometimes not so much, but with still knowledge that is applicable. And then as farmers go through the program, too, we've actually had a number of the children of graduates from our program go on to become trainers in our program, so that these next generations are also moving in to this work. And one of the best ways that we get new trainers up and running is having them shadow the current trainers, because we have trainers that have been with our program for 20 years now. And so they're a wealth of knowledge that can be shared with more trainers as they come on and pick up the work as well. But it's all about those trainers.
Okay, I'd like to just wrap up with one final question, and hopefully this works as I want it to. Are you optimistic for the future? How are you feeling about this work? Is this something that is going to continue to grow and expand? Where are you thinking on that?
Well, I have to admit I am naturally optimistic, but I also am very optimistic because of what I'm seeing on all the farms that we're working with, and just around the world. I feel like more and more people are becoming aware of the importance of how we grow our food, and are looking for a variety of different ways to make the changes necessary. And so, yeah, I'm very hopeful that we're going to make the changes necessary before it's too late.
Wonderful. Well, it did work the way I hoped. I'll make that clear. Well, thank you everyone for joining us here in person and online, whether watching live or the recording. Thank you to the Portsmouth Public Library for offering up their space. We always really enjoy it. Thank you to the League of Conservation Voters for helping us to promote this out to their wonderful network as well. And thank you so much to Flo for the great work that you're doing, for joining us here tonight, for making New Hampshire the first public screening of your film, and for providing us an optimistic conversation to move into the upcoming week. The World Affairs Council of New Hampshire would like to invite you all to our conversation next week, which will be held at Southern New Hampshire University with the former president of Southern New Hampshire University, Paul LeBlanc, who is working to re-envision higher education from the ground up in the age of AI. So please join us in person or online for that conversation on Tuesday, April 29th. We have a lot of other great programs upcoming. We hope that you'll be able to join us for those as well. Check out our website to learn more. Thank you so much. And Have a great evening.
If I can add one more thank you to Whole Foods. They donated a bunch of lovely snacks and soft drinks, which we'll bring out here. So I hope people will stay and chat and enjoy some food and drink.
And be jealous online.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, everyone.